Rafael Nadal has won a record 21st Grand Slam singles title in Australia. Hello, welcome to News Review from BBC Learning English. I'm Rob, and joining me to talk about this story is Roy. Hello, Roy.
Hello, Rob, and hello, everybody. If you would like to test yourself on the vocabulary around this story, all you need to do is head to our website, bbclearningenglish.com, to take a quiz. But now let's hear more about this story from this BBC News report.
Rafael Nadal has become the most successful men's tennis player of all time after winning a record 21st Grand Slam singles title. The Spanish star made history by beating Russia's Daniil Medvedev to clinch the Australian Open in an epic final, lasting more than 5 hours.
So, Rafael Nadal has won a record 21 Grand Slam singles titles, and he has moved ahead of rivals Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. In the Australian Open, he played against, in the final, Daniil Medvedev. And at times it looked like he was going to lose, but in the end, he won.
Yeah, and we've got 3 words and expressions from the news headlines to help us talk about this story. What are those words and expressions, please, Roy?
We have comeback, Herculean, and goat.
So that's comeback, Herculean, and goat. Okay, let's have a look at the first expression from a news headline, please.
Yes, so our first expression comes from Reuters, and the headline reads, "Emotional Nadal finds the fire for his greatest comeback."
So that's comeback, winning after being in a losing position.
Yes, so comeback is spelled C-O-M-E-B-A-C-K, and it is a noun, and it basically means to win after being in a losing position.
Okay, let's talk about this match. I watched this match, and of course, at first, Nadal was losing, but then he got better, and therefore he made a comeback, didn't he?
Yeah, a perfect example of a comeback. And it is commonly used in sporting events, for example, like that. But there are other ways that we use comeback other than to say winning after being in a losing position. But first, let's have a look at those words, or that word, come.
There's that expression come and go. These words get confused a bit, don't they?
They do. Okay, so the difference between come and go, they're both about traveling to a place, but a lot of it depends on perspective. Let's talk about go first. Go is when you're traveling to another place. So in a conversation, I will be the speaker, Rob, you are the listener. I say I will go to Brazil. It is another place where neither the speaker, me, or the listener is present. So you go there, go to another place. Come is a little bit different. It means travel to a place where either the listener, which is you, or the speaker is present. So for example, I could come to your house, which is where you are present, or you could come to my house. So it's like come here and go there, very simplistically put. Come back is a phrasal verb which means return to here, and it is inseparable. So we say come back home, for example. So I went to Brazil earlier this year, and then I came back to the UK 4 weeks later.
And also, could I say, if you visited my house and you left your car keys behind, could I say to you, Roy, come back, you've forgotten your keys?
Yeah, it basically means return. Return to me. Come back here.
Are you making a comeback when you come back for your keys then?
Ah, well, that's interesting. That's another use of comeback there. We have another use, and it quite often gets used to mean return to one's success, or to return to an activity that someone was successful for. Now, last year, Neil and we did a news review about ABBA making a comeback tour. That basically means they're returning to the activity, the concerts, the performances that they were famous for. A comeback.
And in sport, sometimes we hear about footballers making a comeback after a long period of illness or injury.
Absolutely. It can be used as both a noun and a verb, to come back from injury or a comeback.
Got it. Okay, let's have a summary of comeback. Roy just mentioned about ABBA making a comeback, and that's what we discussed last year in News Review. How can we watch that video again, please, Roy?
All you need to do is click the link in the description below.
Okay, let's now have a look at your next news headline, please.
Okay, so our next headline comes from BBC Sport and it reads, "A final of Herculean proportions. Reaction to Rafael Nadal's epic Australian Open triumph."
So that's Herculean, requiring great effort, or epic.
So, Herculean is spelled Herculean, and it's being used as an adjective, and it basically describes something that requires a lot of effort or is incredible or epic.
Now, I've heard of Hercules. Is he related to Heracles?
Okay, so Hercules is present in Roman mythology. I believe he is the son of Jupiter, and he was famously talked about as being just incredibly strong and athletic and physically fit. Heracles is the Greek mythological version of Hercules. Now, in British English, we sometimes use the adjective form of the name Hercules, Herculean, to talk about something that requires an incredible amount of strength or energy. And it quite often is used to talk about sporting events. So if an athlete makes a Herculean effort to win the race, maybe they run faster than you could ever imagine. But we don't only limit it to talking about sporting events. You can also use it to talk about incredible efforts in other areas.
Ah, yes, such as natural disasters. When we hear about some of the terrible things that have happened, we hear about a Herculean effort to help the people who've been devastated by, say, floods or a tornado, that sort of thing. Lots of effort involved to help the people.
Yeah, like just a massive movement to evacuate, help, deliver aid. It's a Herculean effort.
And we also talk about the effort we make at work. We use this word then, don't we?
Absolutely. We use it, we say a Herculean task, maybe something that is incredibly difficult. Now, it is quite commonly used to talk about something physical labor. So something that requires a lot of strength, you could say it's a Herculean task. But we also use it to talk about work that is very difficult or something that is incredibly time consuming.
Okay, and I think you've made a Herculean effort to explain this word. So let's have a summary. We've talked a lot about climate change, and in 6-Minute English, we talked about changing the Earth's climate. How can we watch that video, please, Roy?
All you need to do is click the link in the description.
Great. Okay, let's have a look at your next headline, please.
Okay, so our next headline comes from The Express, and it reads, "Rafa Nadal has taken giant step towards GOAT status as Djokovic and Federer watch on."
So that's GOAT, greatest of all time.
Yes, so GOAT is spelled G-O-A-T, and it is an acronym which stands for greatest of all time, but we say GOAT.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're not talking about the farmyard animal, and we're not talking about goats winning tennis here, are we?
No, now I've got that image in my mind, but no. No, we're not talking about the animal commonly seen on a farm or sometimes on mountainsides that are famous for eating nearly everything. They just eat everything, and they have horns and a little beard. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about an acronym, greatest of all time, GOAT. Now, an acronym is something where we take the first letters of several words and say it as one word. For example, NASA, NATO, and this one is greatest of all time, G-O-A-T, GOAT.
Right, and we're not just talking about somebody amazing. This is the most amazing person ever, the greatest.
Of all time. Of all time, yeah, absolutely. So it's not just like, oh, they're really good. This is the greatest example of that person or of that achievement ever. And we do commonly use it to talk about sports stars, but we also use it to talk about maybe music, singers, bands. Oh, that band is the GOAT. Video games, things that we believe are the greatest ever. And you can use it as a noun and also an adjective. he or she or they are the GOAT. Or you can also say they will forever be known as GOAT.
Okay, well, not only are you the GOAT of News Review, you look a bit like a goat as well. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, very good.
Let's have a summary. Okay, Roy, it's now time to recap the vocabulary we've talked about today, please.
Yeah, sure. We had comeback, winning after being in a losing position. We had Herculean, requiring great effort, epic. And we had GOAT, greatest of all time.
Don't forget, you can test yourself on the words and expressions we've discussed today in a quiz, and that's on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. There's lots of other learning English resources there too. And don't forget, of course, we're all across social media. That's all for News Review for today. We'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.